pick up the QR code at the entrance door and fill in the application. Part of our WhatsApp group so that you get informed regularly about the various events, the live events as well as the Zoom events. With that, let me introduce to you the core member of the Entrepreneurship Club who work. We're all volunteers, as you could tell, and the core members really work around the clock in order to make this happen. So Rashma, is one of our key members. We have Humaid Chowdhury, who is running our electronics here. We have also Brother Ahmed Tojuman. We have also Shakib. He is just makes things happen. I don't know where he is. He's probably doing something outside. Muhammad Darwish. So we are a small team, and we welcome some of you to join us in the core team to help us. We have a lot of dreams and objectives to reach, and we need more manpower, more volunteering manpower to come and help us. With this, let me introduce Brother Humaid Chowdhury. Yes, of course. And Lubna Sheikh, the Executive Director of.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you guys hear me well? All right. I have some big shoes to follow. Another round of applause, this time, with some enthusiasm for Dr. Amr. First of all, I want to thank WEMA for hosting this event. As mentioned, it's still a new hall. There's a new car smell to it. A few kinks we're working through, but at the same time, we want to present a really good event for you guys. I see some old faces, some new faces. All are welcome. Thank you for joining. So my name is Humaid Chowdhury, and I'm up here to introduce our next speaker. And before I introduce, I want to say everyone knows this, that change is constant. Change has been there. It is there right now, and it will be there in the future when we're not here. And with change, as we understand, comes transformation. And as technologists in Bay Area, we understand transformation very well. In my lifetime, I have seen the transformation from .com to Web 2.0 to blockchain, cloud, and now AI. And Brother Akmal Salim, he's going to talk about a transformation as well, and which could be like the biggest transformation that we have seen thus far. And it could be the biggest of our lifetime. And yes, I'm talking about Vision 2030. He'll touch upon that. Also, he will let you know about what he's working on right now. His journey itself is also a transformation, which started with his first company. He founded a creative agency back in UK in 2009. Through that, through his journey and through his vision and his entrepreneurship spirit, he grew that company out of UK. He went to Saudi Arabia. He went to Pakistan, India area, Southeast Asia, as well as South Africa. And in that journey, he realized that there's a gap. There's a gap when it comes to Muslims, and I think we can all relate to that. And he started to look at ways to solve it. And he started, so on that journey, he started the first Islamic banking app back in UK. And that led him to more opportunities. I won't go too further because I'm not speaking on behalf of him. I'll let him explain all that. But what he's working on right now, he has founded a company called Qadr Financial. And it's a company that helps private investors create, grow, and preserve their wealth. And at the same time, provide advisory services in different finance areas, including real estate. So without further ado, please welcome Brother Akmal Salim, founder of Qadar Financial.
Assalamu alaikum. Firstly, I just want to say a massive thank you. I arrived in the US for the first time in adulthood a week ago now. And the main reason for my trip was actually just to discover the US. Alhamdulillah, I've been fortunate enough to travel the world, business with different regions from Southeast Asia, the Middle East, Europe, Africa. And it's been a fascination for me for over 15 years to learn about our community across all of these different regions. The US obviously is a huge market, if not the biggest in some respect. And I knew that if I wanted to go here, I had to give some real dedicated time to really understand the community. And so this year, decision to market. When I started that, I connected with one of our partners, lived in the Bay Area for about 14 years, Kashif Shabir, and he connected me to Usman Ghafoor, who is known in the community, and I connected with him purely just to see and grab a coffee with him, because I came to learn, actually. I came to listen. And so it's an absolute honor and privilege, and I really appreciate Dr. Amar Reshma, the whole team here at the Muslim Association, to actually allow me to speak, because I really came here to actually learn from everybody. And I want to share a bit about my journey. But before I share myself, I want to share my vision. And this is the vision that has been formulated since 2016, when I moved to Medina, and after I sold my first company in Saudi. So over the last, you could say, 8 years or so, I've been reflecting on wealth. I've been reflecting on what wealth means in our community, how it operates in our community, how it impacts us as a community. And I haven't come from a financial background. I actually have come from a branding, marketing, communication background. But I found that there were just so many issues within our financial landscape as Muslims that I just felt that I needed to try a lifelong journey to solve in whichever way I could. And so this is what it's led me to. We believe that wealth creates opportunity, impact, and freedom for all when created with purpose and responsibility. The first line of that what the world operates in a capitalist society. But the second part is what as Muslims we believe together. And so this particular state drives us and drives what we do. Oh. Yes. And so Qadar Financial's vision is a purposeful and responsible private financial ecosystem that empowers communities through wealth creation and sustainable impact. And our purpose is to invest into visionary founders and launch mindful venture finance products with the aim to build a better world, one deal at a time. Bear with me. I'm not going to give a lecture, and also forgive me if I crack any British jokes. I'm sure that it might not be received well here. But upon my reflection, I had two areas that I really wanted to codify through my own personal experience. One is an investment ecosystem, and the second is the wealth ecosystem. At this moment of time, and you guys know better than me, being in Silicon Valley, the venture capital ecosystem cannot directly be overlaid into an system. And I'm not just talking about things like contracts and safes not being Sharia compliant. I'm talking about the very nature of what a venture means within the Muslim and the Islamic space. Our values should be driving the way that the ventures operate. But because we don't have an ecosystem, we find ourselves in a position where investors are reluctant to typically invest into ventures, and that may not be very true in this particular community, but in the UK and in Europe and in other parts of the world, a lot of capital that's under mattresses. Now, I don't know if people keep money under mattresses in the US, but in the UK, the padding in mattresses is money. It's not whatever else they put in it. So for us, this is inhibiting our communities, actually. And it's usually because of fear. It's fear of investing in a startup because they feel they're going to lose that money. And that's inhibiting us as a community. So for us, what we've built and what we're building, and we're committed to building, is a system like this, where investors can invest in venture capital and venture debt. And again, venture debt doesn't exist in our community, but we've put together a program from the beginning. Before technology investment existed, there was just venture debt that existed into companies in their own right. We haven't solved that problem in the community. So we have created a Murabaha-based product which takes care of venture debt, and we have an opportunity for venture capital as well, which is a secondary problem that we'll be looking at. And the whole reason to do this is to drive people into creation of wealth. Because ultimately we have a sustainable impact that everybody wants to make when they start a company, when they have a value system that aligns. And that's ultimately what we are trying to build, a global network of people who want to make sustainable impact all the time when they're working. And that results in wealth creation that comes through the ecosystem again and again. Founders exiting creates wealth, that they become investors. Jobs are created, more wealth is created that goes into sustainable impact. So there's a number of touch points that come down and ultimately come back to making this impact on an ecosystem level. Moving on to the wealth ecosystem, again, once reflecting, I found that we as a community, and again, speaking especially Europe and the Middle East and other regions of the world that we've spent time in, we found that as Muslims, we create wealth, and we graduate that wealth all the way to preserving it. And hence why I keep talking about mattresses. Because we create the wealth, and then we put it into our mattresses, or under our mattresses. And what that's doing is, again, inhibiting us from actually growing our wealth and circulating it based on the previous ecosystem that I've shared. The reality is that other communities are very good at creating wealth, growing it, and then preserving that wealth. And again, within their own financial ecosystems, they're able to continue this process. Again, one of the areas that I found sitting with endless investors, endless founders, endless family offices, is that I found that people who are investing smaller amounts of money feel that they aren't allowed to operate a system like this because they feel like they don't have enough wealth to create a system like this. They feel that they don't have the ability to have a system like this, but that's not true. He's investing $50,000, $100,000. This particular system is something we should be working on over our lifetimes, and that's critical. So I've given you my vision and I've shared some of my ecosystem. Now I'll give you a bit of my background. So 2009, I started a creative agency in the UK. In 2012, a Saudi Arabian family office invested into that business. I moved to in 2014, I moved to Saudi Arabia And then I grew the business and I sold the business in 2016, the Saudi Arabian branch. At that time, I moved to Medina and I started, in essence, what is Qadar Financial. In 2021, recently, I also sold the UK business as well to a UK client. In 2016, as I mentioned, I moved to Medina and I started to reflect upon wealth. And whilst I was building that next phase of my life, we invested into different startups, we did a venture studio. You only will hear the good stuff from me, but I was speaking to somebody previously saying that really 15 years I've spent failing. And so that's the reality of it. But I became a strategic advisor to various family offices in Saudi Arabia, and then also started trading activity because somebody said to me 9/10 of barakah is in trade. So when I turned up into Medina, I was like, I need to start trading. And that's where I started to learn about trade, finance, activities, debt. And I realized that in our community, when I was trading, I just had access to no capital to trade. And that's when we started our trade funds and Murabaha debt funds. And again, we were successful and we failed on a number of things. And that's been a honing process over the past 8 years or so. During COVID, we got stuck back in the UK and we did not know what would happen. But I ended up co-founding the first digital Islamic bank in the UK. And up here, it kind of shows my experience over the last, since I started my journey. I launched a number of fintech products actually in the UK back in 2011. We set up the first charity payment gateway, which was on mobile. We'd done a number of interesting fintech products before the word fintech really meant anything. And so that experience just accumulated. And launching a digital bank was one of the most incredible experiences that I had. Unfortunately, in 2022, I exited from it because I had to, for various reasons. And I came back to Saudi Arabia and continued my journey with Qadar Financial. What do we do and what have we done over the past few years? At this moment of time, I've been fortunate enough to lead multiple fintech transactions in Saudi Arabia for some of the largest families, investing into some of the largest fintech companies. I'm a strategic advisor to the likes of Aramco VC and a number of other VCs. And I've advised and helped launch over $400 million worth of venture capital funds for emerging managers, for first-time managers, especially who want to enter into the Saudi Arabian market. So I've been able to accumulate a number of different experiences, especially in the VC over the last few years, and accumulate all of my experience into what Qadar Financial is today. And that's the vision that I mentioned. Now, enough about me. I'll get to probably what everybody came for, which is Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is an incredible market. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And we don't have enough time to really dive into all of the areas into detail. However, what I'm going to do, or hopefully aim to do today, is to outline the different structure that Saudi has in terms of what it's looking to do and the reality of what Saudi Arabia looks like when it comes to people either trying to invest as GPs, whether it's founders trying to raise investment, or whether it's companies trying to penetrate the market, or whether hopefully it might even help people who are looking in the region as well. Everybody keeps this Vision 2030. What is the Vision 2030? So Vision 2030 is broken into 3 areas where they want to create a vibrant society, a thriving economy, and an ambitious nation. These are the top level areas that Saudi Arabia is building into. And they're quite vague though and broad. So they broke them down into certain programs and initiatives. And why this is really important is because anybody who is looking at Saudi Arabia as a market should be looking to channel their activities through one of these programs. And all of it is available on the website. So you can go and get a deep dive on this specifically. However, using a channel of one of these 11 programs will give an advantage when again, I won't go into depth, but in essence, you might even look at it and think, well, that's everything that a market needs. And it pretty much is. And that's the reality, that they are looking at everything, whether it's the Public Investment Fund, this is PIF, Quality of Life Program. You have Financial Sector Development Program, where Saudi Arabia wants to become the fintech hub of the Middle East. Fiscal Sustainability Program, Health Sector Transformation, Housing Programs, which is a huge real estate. And I'll just touch upon this. Riyadh, for example, at this moment of time has 7 million people who live in Riyadh. By 2030, they have doubled the population. Just that statement alone gives you the scale of on a level of Riyadh. Human capacity development, national industrial development and logistics, and special economic zones. That's what this has been set up for. Some national transformation products, pilgrim experience, and privatization. So there's a number of opportunities that exist, and if you filter into one of these, you have a much stronger chance. But it's important to understand the landscape one level deeper. Saudi Arabia has 23 ministries and 53 authorities on a governmental landscape. That's significant. And being in Saudi Arabia on a day-to-day basis, I see endless companies coming week to week into the region, lost in the headlights, because there is so much opportunity and so many people will meet you, and so many interesting things will come up that they because of the opportunity that exists. And after people get through that issue, they find themselves struggling to understand the simple governmental landscape. It's not as simple as UAE and Bahrain and Qatar, but Saudi Arabia is 20 times bigger than any other GCC country. And again, I hear often where people say, well, we've penetrated the UAE market, so we're sure we can penetrate the Saudi Arabian market. Actually, Saudi Arabia needs to be addressed in a completely new strategy. In the UAE, 75% of people, the population, are expats. In Saudi Arabia, 65% of the local market are locals. So it's a complete dynamic shift when it comes to populace and the people who occupy the market, and how you communicate with them, how you relate to them. And so understanding this is a massive, massive importance. However, with the 2030 vision, there's been 12 development funds that have been set up. And these are to channel funds directly into organizations and companies and who are coming into the market. And if they align with their development fund investment thesis, they're able to channel funds into programs. These development funds are varied though. Some are cash, others are incentives, others are other development funds will give, for example, land. So that, again, very varied in terms of what the incentive program and development actually look like. And the slide that I like talking about the most is the true appreciation of what a family office and the family business market in Saudi Arabia specifically means. I have people who come to us on a weekly basis again who want to meet family offices. And it's a very generic term. We want to meet families, we want to meet family offices. How can we work? How can we raise investment from family offices? The reality is there are categories of family, and those categories have to be appreciated. If you go into a family, you don't appreciate what that family is about, then the that's investment or whether that's a venture is much lower. So I'm quickly touch upon them. We have forming families. Forming families have new money, young leadership, and a sustainability strategy. They're coming into the market. They're usually actually younger family members of established families who are coming of spin-offs, because now we've got generational wealth that is spinning off. And because there's generational wealth spinning off, they want to create their own legacy. This is very new, and it's not really happened previously. So it's a very interesting concept that started within Saudi Arabia. This particular forming family, some have significant capital and others don't. So being able to spend the right way can be very advantageous compared to an established family, which we'll get upon. Establishing families are still new money with younger leadership, but they've already achieved sustainability to a particular point, and now they're looking at growth opportunities. So they're willing to diversify. They're willing to add a bit more risk into their portfolio, a joint venture or whether that's direct investing. So establishing families in their own right can be a very interesting target segment. Thriving families are the ones that are really doing well at this point of time in Saudi Arabia. They've had generational wealth. They've got a transitional leadership from being families into senior management teams, into executive hires that are now take the family's wealth forward and their businesses forward. And they're looking at diversification strategies. So when you have an indirect companies, the thriving family sector is the key sector that is investing into these businesses specifically. And not only do they have fantastic experience in the market, but they also have the wealth to back that up and the connectivity in the market to accelerate any of those programs coming in. So the thriving family sector is by far the most interesting and desired market when it comes to family office specifically. The established families now is old money, mature leadership, and a global strategy. These are established families that have setups and structures in the likes of the US, UK, Europe. They are institutions in their own right. And they're very slow. They're very, very strong on a capital level, but they move very slow. However, if you're able to penetrate within one of these families, the likelihood is you won't need another family. Again, what most companies are interested in is the top family, the royal family, the family that's got the most wealth. This is where the politics also starts when it comes into established families. If you raise capital from a particular family who's an established family sector, other families won't work with you. The government politics can come in and interfere in your business. And so there's risks attached actually to an established family of the opportunity that exists in its own right. So family offices are very diverse, and understanding and appreciating family offices can make you very successful in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East, because the Middle East has this, but just at a different scale in different regions of the GCC. I'm not going to go through this. My timer on my screen has run out, so I don't know how much time I've got. But and I think we're going to share the slides. We'll be sharing the slides, won't we? Okay. So okay. So this, in essence, I wanted to touch upon the VC side of Saudi Arabia specifically, and go into some of the areas of this. But the venture capital market now in Saudi Arabia, for the first time in 2023, overtook all the GCC countries. And that's the first time it's happened. Despite there being 20% reduction year on year in terms of deals, Saudi Arabia still had the second rank in terms of transactions. Some mega deals took place. Fintech is the #1 area of investment, even though AI has come in. Now, important to mention here, real estate is still the #1 investment industry. After real estate, fintech is the second. And then you go into others, which I'll go on to in the next slide. There's a funding gap that was met as well last year. 144 investors back Saudi startups. There's a huge drive to invest locally. Previously, what would happen is there would be VCs that would be investing into the likes of Silicon Valley startups and European etc. But now the government is giving huge incentives to people who are investing locally. And so the capital that's being exported, for you to raise capital for a company that's outside of Saudi Arabia requires you to really have something ground, because the ecosystem that Saudi Arabia wants to create is that of exactly what Silicon Valley has created. And you could say there's almost an obsession to create a Silicon Valley in Saudi Arabia. That will take a very, very long time, but they have started to really push capital into that. And if there's anybody interested in looking at how they're starting that, there's a place in Riyadh called the Garage or the Garage. I don't know which is the right way of saying it. I'm going to call it the Garage, but and so that's an area, that's an institution, a VC ecosystem that started that you can check out. There's other places like Kaust. They have certain accelerators, innovation funds there, which are very interesting from an ecosystem perspective, and something to look at. And the exit activity, not really much to talk about, but has been fairly stable. Again, just touching upon, just illustrating even the difference in 2023 in terms of Saudi Arabia's deals versus UAE, Egypt, Morocco, and Bahrain. And also just looking at the sectors. So fintech being the largest investment sector, e-commerce and retail picking up the second, enterprise software, transport, logistics, healthcare. I want to touch upon AI because maybe some of you are thinking, well, where is AI in all of this? AI is going to very, very quickly become the #1 sector of investment in Saudi Arabia. However, and for all the people who know AI better than me, you have foundational AI and application AI. Saudi Arabia is really trying to focus on the foundational layer of AI within the kingdom. So there's a drive of foundational AI that will filter through all of the sectors. So there won't be AI sector as such. It's just how does AI drive into each of these sectors to develop each of these industries. And again, just quickly, a 5-year evolution just to show the massive growth when it comes to funding across the previous 5 years. And this trend will continue in this particular way. So, in summary, I think for Saudi Arabia as a market, it's an incredible market. You have to come with a nuanced strategy. I think this is super important for people who are looking to raise capital, especially whether you're an emerging manager looking to raise capital, you need to spend time. Dedicated time in Saudi Arabia is super important. The Saudis are actually making a joke of they call them tourist businesses, which is in essence all of the people who are just flocking to Saudi Arabia. And I've sat in those rooms where the Saudis are literally making a joke about all of the VCs that are turning up to Four Seasons Hotel in Riyadh. That's where Ronaldo used to stay. And because they're saying this is actually now the Palo Alto. That's what they're joking. And what they're doing is they're literally saying, hey, come back again, come back again. And they're making people come back again and again, and nothing's happening. If someone isn't dedicated to their vision now, they are not looking to invest into that and export their capital. And so the reality of Saudi Arabia is that there is a huge opportunity, no doubt. But that opportunity does exist for people who are committed to the region. And that before, and again, I see this again all the time where people feel or think that they'll go to Saudi Arabia, come off the plane, shake hands with somebody wearing a thobe, and they'll pass them $1 million briefcase. Doesn't exist anymore. So if there's a commitment to the region for them, there's opportunity, no doubt. If you're just trying to take capital from the market, it's a lot harder ask, and you've got to have a product or a service that is really groundbreaking. However, that's where the majority of capital is. Established families who have setups in the US or other regions, absolutely there's opportunity to raise capital from them as a normal investment thesis. So thank you very much. Hopefully that you took some benefit from that, and I really appreciate again the team allowing me to come and speak.
No, thank you so much for making the trip. And basically, I learned a lot of new stuff, and I'm sure there are a ton of questions. I'll bring the mic to wherever you guys are. I saw his hand first. Sorry if I skip you. Please keep raising your hand. I will get you, inshallah.
Thank you. Hello. You said there are 53 authorities. What does that mean, 53 authorities? And then also you said you need to be committed to the region. What do you actually mean by that? Like, do we need to move there when I need to invest there?
Sure. So between a ministry and authority is a ministry has a minister. And an authority doesn't have a minister, but authorities come under some of the ministries. So it's not technically, it doesn't have a dedicated minister, but in essence it's a governmental authority that sits under one of the ministries, but acts as an independent body. Hopefully that answers that. Sorry?
That makes it very complicated to establish an entity there.
Absolutely, and I did not advise the government on that. So, so when it comes to the second question was, what does it mean to be committed to the region? So Saudi has two lanes when it comes to commitment to the region: Saudi-based and Saudi-related. And this is in their national kind of strategy. Saudi-related is where you have organizations that have some level of investment, set up, license within the region, who may not particularly be there. Then you have Saudi-based, and Saudi-based are those companies, startups, who actually have set up and actually live in the region and have an office there and are operating from Saudi Arabia as a HQ. And that's the two main kind of, you could say, simplest definitions that are in there. Things.
Awesome. Before I take the next question, Dr. Amar, do we know how much time do we have before Maghrib? 7:50. Another 12 minutes. Okay. So maybe 3 or 4 more questions. Okay.
Akmal, thank you for the very informative talk. Very knowledgeable. So I'm actually moving to Riyadh next week. In 1 week from now, having lived and worked in Silicon Valley for the last 15 years for various tech companies, what is your advice? Where is the biggest value that I can add over there, right? Is it technology? Is it the exposure to problems that I've gained here? Where is it that I can add real value, right? So if you could advise on that, that'd be awesome.
Sure. Are you going as a startup or as someone who's going there as a career move?
I don't have a job there, but I'm moving there. I have some ideas to launch my own consulting. I'm basically exploratory, but I'm moving with my family. I'm leaving the Silicon Valley.
Okay, fine. So my advice there is to spend the first amount of, when you land, to really absorb what's happening and understand what's happening on the local market with the local Saudis who are working in that space. Real estate is a very established, mature market within Saudi Arabia. So when it comes to international knowledge, that's not something that the Saudis are, and I'm going to be very honest, they're not desperate for international consultants to come in on that level. So you've got to find the value add that you bring with your experience to the market. And so expose yourself to as much as you can within the real estate space relative to what you've done here and what you've supported and what you've helped, etc. And then find that absolute niche that you can create a benefit for yourself and the people that you're working with as a consultancy. So whatever that value is, be very focused. I see a lot of consultants coming into the market being very broad and saying, okay, well, I can help you with everything within real estate. Not going to win business. You're not going to develop any business, unfortunately, because the Saudis are either looking at specialisms or they're looking at gaps to fill. Find those gaps and then attack them.
Awesome. We're very excited for you, and do keep in touch. Let us know how things go, and see where we can provide guidance. And Brother Akmal, I'm sure will be happy to help as well.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Minhaj Kokar. I'm an old timer here. Used to work for Dr. Mahathir of Malaysia, so I know how to deal, how difficult it is to deal with Malaysia, with any government, even US government. I specialize in building new industry. I helped build Malaysia's microchip design industry, and nowadays I'm working to establish climate change and food security as an industry. Next week I'm headed to Riyadh. The Islamic Development Bank, they're going to have their 50th anniversary. And if anybody wants to go there, I think this is an opportunity if you're looking for any investments for any of your project to be done anywhere in the Muslim world. Islamic Development Bank is a good forum for that. My question, somebody going to Islamic Development Bank, what should they expect and how to achieve that expectation?
From Islamic Development Bank directly?
Yes, and there are a lot of banks now within Islamic Development Bank.
Can I just add, you remind me of my dad, and mashallah, his beard is just as white, a little bit longer. I'll hand it over to you to answer the question.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. So we're actually just completing some advisory for ISDB. So I have to be honest again. The reality of ISDB and ISDBI specifically, they're very slow. They're an institution. They're going to move very slow. I think that there's a transition happening with the ISDBI right now, which is obviously similar to other incumbent banks that are in the world who are trying to transition from being more traditional and slower into being dynamic. And so that process is currently happening. I think if you've got a solid business with a traditional banking track record, then ISDBI is a fantastic place to go and look for. But from a startup ecosystem perspective, ISDBI isn't really an area and a forum I personally would, because I think that there is a lot more interesting capital and strategic partners around the world who can support a vision. So that's what I would say.
I just want to say really good questions, and as the light gets dark outside, it's going to get dim, and we will have some chai for you guys to stay awake. The next speaker will come back after Maghrib, so pray Maghrib and come back, don't go anywhere. The next speaker is mashallah, a really good one, a lot of innovations, a lot of patents local to Silicon Valley. Yes, and then there will be a panel with fireside chat between both of them. I just want to, the brother asked, the one who's moving to Saudi Arabia, like how does he stay in touch with us, with the WVMA, Silicon Valley Entrepreneurship Club. We have a QR code, join the club and volunteer. As you can see, there's a lot to be done as a Muslim community in the area. And the more help we can get, the better. And trust me, we will use you. We will make your time worthwhile. So we have next question.
Assalamu alaikum. As a founder looking to raise seed or pre-seed in the construction and the AI sector, intersection of that, would you recommend physically going to Saudi as opposed to reaching out to the investors online, even when we can show them the demo online?
Which stage are you at? Like, have you raised pre-seed, seed, or just raising seed or pre-seed?
So the plan is to raise, seed or pre-seed. Yeah.
The first fund.
The first round. Yeah.
Okay, fine. My advice is to try and raise and get at some level of concept before you go to Saudi Arabia, because again, from a pre-seed perspective, unless you have again a product which is very different, I would study the market without going there, or going there just to see and meet people in your industry, understand the market, understand what products might exist similar to yours in the market, because prop tech, AI is big. There's a lot of stuff happening there. Understand that, and that will put you in a better position to whether you want to raise pre-seed here, which I think makes more sense for you, and then with some level of established product, go to Saudi Arabia and then, yeah, get involved in one of the accelerators or, like I said, the garage, and look at opportunities from there.
Thank you.
Real quick time check, Dr. Amar. We have another question. She's on the board, so be careful. Put in a good word for us. Yeah. Huh? And a real estate. Oh, there we go.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. So I'm also a real estate investor here, and we co-founded a real estate riba-free investment company in 2016. So my question is related to real estate. You mentioned that there are real estate funds, and it's the top one market in the Saudi. Do you also see that the same real estate investors who are investing in Saudi, they may be interested in investing here in U.S. projects, for example, with me or with anyone?
Yeah. So, again, just to give a bit of context in terms of our real estate exposure in Saudi. So we've set up one of the first structures to invest into real estate in Medina. So that's one of the things that we've done in the last 6 months. And so, but generally the appetite for Saudi real estate is not international now, because the amount of opportunity and potential return in Riyadh alone is just incredible. So the like-for-like investment doesn't exist. If you have an established family office that has funds set up in the US and UK and other areas, absolutely, they're just continuing that process of diversifying. But from a return perspective, the likes of Riyadh, in fact, what's happening is real estate funds and investors coming to Saudi in flocks, because there's just such an incredible opportunity in that space. I mean, it's so varied. Yeah, so it's varied. I mean, again, you know, some of our investments in terms of build and sell have reached up to 60% within 12 months in terms of build and sell. And then you have others which are returning, if it's, let's just say, rent on rent, could be anywhere between 8 and 12%. I mean, it's depending on the type of real estate investment. Riyadh's land value has gone up by like 3 times in the last 4 years. Like, it's incredible, so yeah. It isn't just for Medina, it's open for Muslims generally, but that's through our structure, which is very, you know, dynamic in the way we've done it. But for Riyadh, etc., that's open to anyone. So it's not just for Muslims, anybody can invest.
So for Medina, go through Qatar Financial.
Yeah, we've created a structure which is unique in its own right.
Awesome. So I have a long walk to the next question. In the meanwhile, do you want to tell us about your favorite position in soccer or football?
So I played football yesterday in the community. So I used to play in defense. I moved all the way up to being a striker, and then now as I'm getting older and I'm getting a lot tired quicker, I've come back into basically defense. So, so the next stop will basically be staying at home.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum. Good presentation. My question was, could you elaborate on opportunities in the ed tech space?
Before we start, I think the Azan is called. So if you want to quickly answer that, and then Brother Amar has a question. Can we save that for after? Is that okay, or do you want to? Yeah, we can also ask the questions in the fireside chat as well. So people are moving towards the Adhan is called. So if you want to take this last one, and then we'll go for prayer.
Sure.
Thank you.
EdTech space is very dynamic at the moment. It depends on what part of EdTech you're in. Maybe speak to me afterwards and just give me a bit of information on what that is, and then I'll share a little bit of knowledge that I have on that space. Thank you.
Good question. Sorry, just the timing, you know. But Brother Akmal will be here after.
Yeah.
So yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll break for prayer right now. Thank you.
speaker. Mr. Mir Imran is a innovator and a lot more things, but to me personally, I've been a fan of inventors, from the Islamic Muslim inventors to the last ones we know, Einstein. But if we were to record in history and record someone who's actually done something for the community and invented and continues to invent, the only name that comes up is of Mir Imran. So without further delay, I want to have a long introduction. I know many of you have read the bio, that's why you're here probably, but it's still our deep respects to him. And with that, I wanted to introduce Mir Imran, the chairman and CEO of Incube Labs. He's an innovator and entrepreneur, just like I mentioned, and he has been developing and commercializing breakthrough innovations for over 40 years. Mr. Mir began his career as a healthcare entrepreneur in the late 70s with his pioneering contribution to the first FDA-approved implantable defibrillator, the ICD. Since then, Mir has founded more than 20 life sciences companies and 2 tech companies, 15 of which have been liquidity events, IPOs or acquisitions. His most recent exit was Rani Therapeutics. How many of you have heard of Rani Therapeutics? The Rani Therapeutics holdings went public on NASDAQ in July of 2021. Mir's inventions have saved the lives of millions of patients, and many have become the standards of care. He has developed innovative therapies for a number of chronic diseases, including chronic pain, stroke, diabetes, cancer, urology, and several cardiovascular conditions. His recent company, Rani Therapeutics, is revolutionizing the management of chronic diseases by replacing painful injectable therapies with oral biologics. I know it sounds very scientific. It's basically a robotic pill that eliminates the need of an injection. Who likes needles? So Mr. Mir holds more than 800 issued and pending US patents. So for all those entrepreneurs thinking of their inventions and intellectual property securing, do talk to him afterwards. In 2018, QMed, Academy of Innovators, Inventors, and American Institute of Medical and Biological Engineers, they added him as a fellow. In 2009, Mir was inducted into the Rutgers University Hall of Distinguished Alumni. Mir is also the co-founder and managing director of Incube Ventures, a limited partnership, a medtech biotech venture capital fund. In addition, Mir serves on the boards of several life sciences companies, on the advisory board of Lemelson Foundation, and in a trustee position at the UCSC Foundation. He's also an adjunct professor of bioengineering at the University of Pittsburgh and actively supports the promotion and teaching of innovation and entrepreneurship at colleges and universities. As a philanthropist, Mir is passionately supporting education in India and US, especially for the underprivileged students. It's my honor to actually welcome Mir on stage and to enlighten all of us tonight and this masjid with his journey. As you can see, the title is Innovation and Entrepreneurship, but I would highly encourage those of you who are parents with children to bring them in. This PowerPoint and the presentation is not to be missed. We are broadcasting and we are live, but I would highly encourage everyone to pay attention, move up forward, and hold your questions towards the end. Without further ado, round of applause for Mir Imran.
Assalamu alaikum. Oh. Well, following up on Brother Akmal's presentation, I think that presentation was really interesting. I learned so much about. Am I audible in the back? Hello. Okay. I can hear myself, but so that was very enlightening. Thank you. And I want to thank Brother Amar Mohsen and Sister Reshma Heather for inviting me. It's truly an honor to be here. And so what I'm going to do over the next 20, 30 minutes is talk about innovation and entrepreneurship, which I guess this is the Entrepreneurship Club, so that's an appropriate topic. So let me start. Let me tell you what I'm going to do. This doesn't work. I think he's. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about my background. Sister Reshma has already done that. I will talk about my research lab. Oh, I keep forgetting that. Sorry about that. I'm going to talk about my research lab, applied research lab, Incube Labs, and I'll talk about my view of entrepreneurship and innovation. I'll start with talking about innovation, and we'll get into the discussion of how we apply that process of innovation and entrepreneurship to creating disruptive businesses. And finally, I'll share some examples from my work and draw some conclusions. So how many of you consider yourself as innovators? So, sir, can you define innovation for me?
Innovation is creating something, having an idea, having a product or service that doesn't exist right now.
Anyone else has?
That solves the problem or has utility.
Okay. Anyone else want to volunteer a definition? Yes.
Make something that is pre-existing simplified.
Say that again.
Simplify something that is pre-existing.
Simplify something that is pre-existing. Anyone else? How about you?
Yeah, I think it's that. I think it's some need and a problem has come up.
Okay.
And solving for it.
Okay. So I think those are all, yes, ma'am.
It's an idea or a work or a product that can solve
Mm-hmm.
or help something that's already in place
Right.
better or different or more that has more value
Mm-hmm.
that helps with another item or product
Right.
in place or
Mm-hmm.
just, I don't know.
Got it. Yep, I got it. So as you can see, there are many definitions of innovation. So what I'm going to attempt to do today is define how I define, share with you how I define innovation and how I apply it in creating novel solutions. So the next slide, I'm going to skip that. So Incube Labs is an applied research lab. I started about 35 years ago, mainly as a place for me to research and explore problems, mostly in medicine, but I ended up starting a couple of tech companies along the way. And I'll share the Incube Labs is really multi-disciplinary lab with skill set across multiple disciplines, and it allows us to tackle a whole range of medical and non-medical problems. So we were just talking about what is innovation. A new idea, a new technology, a new way to solve a problem. I think those are some of the responses that we got. And the second follow-up question is, can we create a process for innovation? To practice innovation innovation throughout history has been something that you stumble on, you somehow encounter a problem and you make a solution for that. But what we're going to talk about is how do you deliberately innovate. So my definition is very simple. And in fact, in our daily life, that is the definition we follow. It's the identification, understanding, and framing of a problem that is worthy of a solution. So if you took your car to a mechanic, and the mechanic comes out with a really weird-looking tool and says, I'm going to fix your car with this, you'll run away. You wouldn't let him touch it because he hasn't figured out what the problem is. And in science and technology, often our scientists and engineers, they apply that, they forget that, what we use in our daily lives, and they start to look at problems through the lens of the technology that they were trained in. So, and that is really the hardest way of identifying problems. Now, you're all familiar with the entrepreneurial activity. I don't need to go through that. Determining the commercial value, analyzing the commercial potential of a solution, evaluating risks, and developing a plan. These are all the standard things you all know how to do. So what I'm going to describe to you now is the InCube Labs process. So identifying a problem, it's easier said than done. It is the single most difficult step in the process of innovation. And what I learned is that this requires a really unique mindset, which questions everything. I talk to a lot of experts, but I don't believe a word they're saying, because they may have become an expert, and becoming an expert really makes you a very narrow, gives you a narrow view, because you start thinking of yourself as an expert, and you look at the world through a very narrow lens. So I talk to them, I learn from them, but I question what they say. And it does require a disciplined approach to evaluating the problems. So, excuse me, let me just. I'm sure it's going to topple over. Let's see. Finding worthy problems. So I made a list one day, of all the companies I've started, how did I come to that problem? And there's a whole different range of ways. We are shut down now. So I'll continue without it. Thank you. So that's okay. I can continue. I hope the stage doesn't blow up in 23 seconds. That's all right. It's overheated. So let me continue. So it'll make it easier. I don't need to turn around and look at the slides. So what I was going to tell you about is I made a list of ways I have identified problems. Sometimes it was a personal experience. A family member got sick, had a specific disease, and I realized that the solutions were not very good. Or I got robbed by a real estate agent. Can you believe that? You know, I had my house on the market, and it's in old days when real estate agents had mechanical keys for getting into the lockbox, getting the property key out, and going in. And of course, this guy was a thief, and he got the real estate license and helped himself to my stereo system. So that I was quite pissed off from that. And so I decided to solve that problem. So that's how I look at everything with a jaundiced eye. You know, why is this a problem? Why can't it be solved? So I created an electronic lockbox that it's widely used all over. And, you know, it was just out because I saw a problem, it needed to be solved. My background, by the way, is in electrical engineering and medicine. So I can... So, oh, wow. So then so my interest was also developing in this area of innovation, to learn about innovation. It took me about a dozen years to come up with that definition that I just shared with you. So that looks better. We're making headway. So so let me continue. I don't need to worry about that. There you go. So, you know, so identifying the problem is a very critical step, but making sure that the problem is worthy of solution is the next important step. You don't want to just find the first problem and go after it. It doesn't make sense. So you really want to identify the attributes of a problem that are worthy of solution. So this is a checklist that I have created for myself, and when I encounter a problem, I see if it meets all my criteria. It's like a 2-page long checklist, and if it doesn't, then I walk past that, look for another problem. So because I feel that I'm going to spend years of my life trying to come up with a solution, commercializing that solution, that problem better meet the criteria. The next slide, which I can't get to. There you go. So having identified a problem, you now have to spend time understanding it. So the second part of that equation that I gave you, identifying and framing a problem. Framing a problem implies you really understand it so well that you can describe it very clearly in a few sentences. So you have to gain that level of clarity, which means you have to spend time understanding the problem, and if there are existing solutions, understanding those solutions and figuring out why that qualifies as a problem that you should solve. Here I have listed things that are more applicable to medicine, but you can come up with your own list of criteria. The next slide. So Then you start, as you start looking at the problem, you start thinking about the solution. And what I have developed is again, a list, a criteria, a list of attributes of a solution that makes it worthy of implementing, commercializing. So you can come up with your own list, and as you look at that, you develop the solution. So this is an iterative process. You identify the problem, you analyze the problem, you analyze solutions, you go back and refine, sometimes reframe the problem, because you may have started with the wrong problem to solve, and as you're thinking about it, you fine-tune the definition of the problem. So you ultimately end up with a viable solution, potentially. Now, I think that from here, a lot of you can step in and say, now I can build a business around it, because I've identified a problem that's worthy of solution. I've got a solution that's worthy of commercialization, so let's do that. But I take it another step further. I analyze it for business risks. So what most entrepreneurs don't do is, once they have a solution, they are immediately looking to, figuring out how to start a company, how to raise money. I think that's jumping the gun, because you have to be assessing business risks, and there are risks at every turn. So I go through a very thorough analysis of the solution and figure out where the risks are and how difficult would they be to mitigate. And so there you go, it works. So you continue with a long list of criteria, and at the end of this, you might find a deep flaw in your solution. In one case, for example, I had gone and spent months analyzing, and then I found that this particular medical product, the insurance company would never reimburse it. So it was a viable product, viable solution, viable problem, viable solution, but reimbursement from insurance companies would not be there. So I dropped it. So you at this same stage, if it turns out to be a good solution and has commercial value and the risks are manageable, that becomes your business plan. And when you go out to raise money, one of the things I tell entrepreneurs every single time is that entrepreneurs really are so positive, and they're so sure of their company working out, they never even mention the word risk. Investors, on the other hand, they want to figure out how many different ways they're going to lose your money. And so I think it's really good. What I have always done is have a couple of slides on risks, and I say, this is how many different ways this business can fail, and this is what I'm doing to mitigate that. That gives your potential investor a lot more confidence that you know what you're doing. At least you're recognizing that there are potential risks. So this is what I've just said is a really key point, and you won't hear it from other entrepreneurs. You only hear it from investors. And so when I became an investor, about 30 years ago, I started getting ready to write checks to invest in companies. These thoughts came to me, what if this fails, and how many different ways can it fail? And what are they doing? And then I realized that when you're telling the story, you have to address what are the risks that are that will cause it to fail, and what are you doing about it? Now, it doesn't mean that you, the company won't fail. It does not mean that. But at least you're addressing those risks that can be identified. So I think the key here, what I have said, is identify the problem, make sure it's a problem that's worthy of solution, identify a solution, and figure out all the reasons why you should kill it by analyzing the risks. And then when it gets through all that, you build a company. So I got lucky in my journey when I left medical school to start a company called Intech in '79. And that started and in fact, when I started that company, I didn't even know I was an entrepreneur. So somebody said, and I had not heard that word. I was in my early 20s. So, all these companies have a story behind them, each one of them, and that is the identification of the problem story. The defibrillator has become a standard of care. 45 years later, it's still widely used in cardiology. Thanks to the crooked realtor, I made some money on more money than I lost. Depth of anesthesia. This company started because a relative of mine had gone through surgery, and the anesthesia was so poorly done that he came out of it with brain damage. And I said, boy, this has to be addressed. So it took me years to figure this out, created a novel instrument that tells the anesthesiologist how deep the patient is so that they can titrate the anesthesia accurately. Cardiac pathways, another curative therapy. Enlarged prostate treatment. Cardiology company, we came up with the notion of embolic protection. So these were all acquired by various companies. Mindray was the company that acquired the ultrasound imaging company. You've seen these machines at airports where you go through and get scanned. So after 9/11, I started thinking about applying technology to solve this problem of people going in with plastic explosives or ceramic knives or whatever on the airplane. So we created this technology and sold it to a defense contractor. Start to finish, it took me about 4 years. Most of the other life science companies take between 8 to 10 years. And now, these days, they take even longer. This is gone. Can we advance? Yeah, this is to treat aneurysms in the brain. Next slide. Again, this happened to one of my relatives, had a stroke, a hemorrhagic stroke, so I created that solution. It's in wide use now. Chronic pain therapy, again, I encountered that with my mother, and nothing was working other than opiates, so I created the solution. So again, it was always driven by problem. And if you notice one thing, each one of these solutions are completely different. I don't care about technology. I don't start with technology. I don't say I'm going to solve this problem with AI or nanotechnology or anything. Those are just tools. So let the problem tell you how it wants to be solved. Brain cancer, I'm currently working on this. And Rani Therapeutics, Sister Reshma had told you about. This is a robotic pill that you swallow. It goes into the intestine and delivers an injection in your intestinal wall. Because these drugs, the drugs that we put in here, they all have to be injected through the skin. And most of these drugs are patients have to self-inject. So it's a huge burden on patients. How do can you press, turn on the...
Rani Therapeutics, an
There's a
InQ
1-minute
Labs
video.
company, has created a novel approach for the delivery of biologics orally. In this video, we will demonstrate how the Rani pill, our oral delivery platform, works. Here you see a patient swallowing what appears to be a standard capsule. The capsule has a special enteric coating that protects it from the acidic environment in the stomach. When the capsule encounters the higher pH levels found in the small intestine, the enteric coating and outer shell of the capsule dissolve, exposing the delivery mechanism to intestinal fluid. The mechanism has a self-inflating balloon that contains two reactants separated by a dissolvable valve. Exposure to intestinal fluid dissolves the valve, allowing the reactants to mix, creating carbon dioxide. This inflates the balloon and creates the pressure needed to inject a dissolvable microneedle containing the drug or sensor into the intestinal wall. The intestinal injection is pain-free, as the intestines have no sharp pain receptors. The balloon then deflates and is safely passed out. In the case of drug delivery, the drug is quickly absorbed by the highly vascularized intestinal wall.
So that's a little tiny pill. I thought I'd share that with you. It is 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Oh, wow. That's more than I need. So let's see. Lessons learned. I'll just summarize what I have learned. Innovation definition is really key. That has really guided my whole career. And it's the identification and definition or framing of a problem that should be solved. And finding the problem, we already said it really is it requires a mindset that questions everything. And now, not every problem that I have gone after I have been able to solve. I have had to abandon a number of them because I just couldn't understand them. I didn't have the background. And so they don't want to reveal their secrets to me. So I have abandoned a lot of them. And the other truth about problems is that the solution to every problem is embedded in the understanding of the problem. This is why sticking with the problem is so critical. And so, I think the other thing comment I want to make is in my work, I've only gone after really big unsolved problems. I'm not interested in improving an existing solution, because you can take any solution like this thing and make it better, so it doesn't stop working in the middle of a presentation. But that's not going to change the world. So I always tell entrepreneurs, go after the big unsolved mysteries. You're going to have a much bigger impact than taking small steps. Leave the small stuff for the big companies, because they're good at that. And they're not very good at going after really big problems. So question everything, and thank you for your time. Thank you. I guess there's no time for questions, time to pray. 5 minutes. Any questions?
Hello.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your presentation. As you can see, it's been a are we ready for lunch?
really do have a problem with our technical difficulties. Please introduce yourself and ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My name is Farhan. I have a two-pronged question. First one is, how do we convince VCs? Can you hear me properly? No?
I can, it's too
Maybe
bad.
without it, can you hear me better like this?
Yeah, don't need that. No, yeah.
How do we convince VCs that a hardware problem or hardware product is worth investing in? And part two is, how do we make a hardware company, a hardware-based product survive without the need of a software subscription kind of model?
You know, you have to have the right background. You have to have the right background to actually understand those problems and the technology. So I have built a really deep background in engineering and all different branches of engineering and medicine. But you know, these problems don't have to be hardware-based. If you look at a disruptive problem solving FedEx did, you know, they solved the problem of delivering a package from any place to any place overnight. How the heck do you do that? And they came up with this hub and spokes approach, where all the packages go to a central place, and from there they go out to all the other places. So it really simplified the solution. So that's an example of a business model, and there are hundreds of examples of business model solutions that are highly disruptive. So look at what Amazon has done and so many others. Anything else? Yep.
Thank you so much. We have a next one right here.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, please ask the question.
Bismillah. Exited a lot of companies. So my question was, why did you exit so many companies? Why didn't you grow them further? And how did you decide that this is the right time to exit those?
Great question. I have a short attention span. That's one. But you know, one of the main reasons I did that is each company, when you start it, it's a single product company. It's at very high risk of something happens and it craters because you don't have another product, don't have another source of revenue. And that's why big companies get lucky. At some point, they've made it far enough along, and they had revenue streams, so they could start buying small companies. So I have taken some companies public. Some of them have gone to hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, and some large company comes and makes an irrational offer, and then you have to take it. Do you agree?
So much.
Another question here.
Please go ahead and introduce yourself and ask the question. Asking a question.
I came to the U.S. right after high school. I was 18 years old. Didn't have any family here, but I wanted to run away from India, and ended up at Rutgers on the East Coast. And I was a sponge, you know, just took every single class I could fit in, and I had great professors, and you know. No. Yeah, I mean, people looked at, most investors looked at me, you know, brown-skinned kid. But the reason I was able to get attention was the kind of problems I was solving. No one else was solving those problems. And that's what helped me, help them overcome their racism. Right.
We have another question here.
I didn't even have my parents here. I came penniless and skipped meals to survive during school. Yeah. When you cut all the support system, you have nothing to fall back on except yourself. I think there's a small secret that everyone knows and should know, and that is ability to take risk and be fearless. Not, fearlessness and courage is really important because without that, you cannot claim that you're going to solve any big problems.
Awesome. We have a next question.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair for the inspiring talk. You made it sound easy to create 20 companies. I guess my question is beyond the definition of innovation, the skill that you build in that part, what can you tell us about the difference between when you create your first company versus when you created the company number 20? I'm more interested in what can you teach us about creating teams, getting the product in the hand of the final consumer. How did you see this process?
I was winging it most of the time, and I was just guessing at it and doing things. But I think the key is, I was really afraid in the first company. I used to have sleepless nights. I used to think that if this company goes down, I'll never be able to show my face to anyone. I was just super scared, and I had to constantly overcome my fears. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me that much strength to overcome those fears.
Awesome. And follow-up to that is any people skills that work for you in working with others? Any people skills that you would recommend? Treat people with respect and love, and treat them better than you would want to be treated. Awesome. So I have one question, and in Bay Area, it's a pretty common question. And a brother asked me today, and in previous events as well, someone always asks this question: how can they bring a product into the market that has been developed like in parallel or in conjunction with like where they're working right now? Any advice on that?
You have to leave the job, resign.
But that's risky, right?
No, you have to take that risk. Otherwise, you'll never get there.
Okay, awesome.
I have seen a lot of my friends who did that, work and then work evenings and weekends. And unless you cut that rope, that string.
We have only 3 minutes to go. So this will probably be the last question. Depending on how long it takes Brother Mir to answer. I know there was a couple more hands, which is good, but let's make this a last one if possible.
Brother Mir, my name is Minhaj Kokar. I think I introduced a little bit earlier. I'm working on climate change and food security these days. I believe that this is an area that will a lot of innovation, a lot of products and technologies will come out of this if we build it as industries, not just work on one or two products, but build it as industries. This is what my thinking is, that we Muslims should take the lead in establishing these two things as in industries. And are you working on anything on climate change and food security?
brother, I'm 68 years old.
I'm
in fact,
65.
I started getting my Social Security check 3 months ago, so I kind of feel retired already. But I'm still building a few companies. I have
Mashallah.
three companies. Alhamdulillah.
In entrepreneurship, there is no such thing as retirement. Dr. Amar is my inspiration, and he's much strong, faster than me. What's your name, brother? Minhaj Kokar, we need you in our WBMA club. We need that kind of mindset. One more question. I know
If
this
any of
young
you want
brother,
to contact me, my contact information.
young brother had raised the question, so I'll have him.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is
Salam.
Wasim. I just had a question on two questions, one on competition and one on delegating. For example, when you started the company on the security systems following the 9/11, I'm pretty sure it was on a lot of people's minds to take advantage of that.
The security system company?
Like following 9/11 in 2003 to 2006, the scanners. Yeah, that one. The safe view, safe view.
So, that was SafeView.
Yeah.
This company. Oops.
That's the airport scanners?
So you see these two round dots. These are all the black dots here. These are all failures, and so it's not that all my companies succeeded. 4 failures, and then the round dots are 2 companies I started while I was a student at Rutgers, and I didn't know what I was doing. I had no money, and I just started a company, and it failed. So.
Thank you so much for your question.
My research lab I use it, that's my sandbox. I use it to research my crazy ideas, and I'm really pushing the boundaries of science and technology and medicine. So there are other incubators. If you write to me, I'll refer you to some other incubators where you can go and explore and prototype your ideas.
Thank you so much. Can I have another round of applause for our esteemed speaker?
Thank you.
I wanted to just share that we do have another fireside chat, and I'm going to jump into what our esteemed speaker has done for me personally and for this club. We've had some startups that have gone through his knowledge and advice. So go for Isha and then come back. We're going to have a very intimate discussion with both of our speakers and a couple of interesting questions about the backgrounds and education. I know some people did ask the question, but stay back and come back right after the Isha. Jazakallah khair. have had the privilege of having a family investment back in 1998 in a tech startup from a Saudi and people from the Middle East. That helped us not just grow here locally, but we actually had a business grow in the Middle East. And that's the connection I had. For the three companies that pitched to us, they were taking the risk. The founders were able to go and pitch to the Saudi investors, and they were able to have a stake and a share from the investors. So tonight I was going to share one company that I'm very happy to talk about. And while we get the slide up, 1 minute pitch. And I'm very thankful to Mir Imran because he was not just an advisor, but an investor in that company.
I was?
Yes. If I could go back and share my story. Our expert doc.
Oh, yeah.
There is.
Yeah.
Well,
Any comment?
I
thought
have a
I
success
must have
story.
invested while I was high on something.
Yeah. No. This is the latest one, but I have a story to share. The failure and the success, or to be successful. I actually reached out to him for a hardware solution that I was having. I was an advisor and investor in a company called Space, and we had a hybrid work tool, and then it was also involving a logbox and software. I thought, who is good to go to this expert to get advice from? And as a novice advisor investor, I went and had him be the mentor that I really needed. He opened up my eyes to see if the company was going to sustain, how the policies and structures were in place, what was the cap table like. So I'm very thankful to you for guiding that.
Saving you from fate worse than death.
Exactly. And I don't know if I can share that, but it was a
No,
very
no,
interesting
no,
scenario where I had no idea what he was going to do. I go there with the startup founder, and he's ready to invest, but he puts a condition down. He says, okay, I'm going to invest if you put her as a co-founder. That was the biggest test that I could do. Because of all the work that I've done in the startup, this is how we gauge the founder's interest in valuing somebody like myself. So I ran away from there. But then the latest one that I'm involved with is called our expert doc. As you can see, it's up there. It's a very innovative solution to an existing problem that grew multifold after COVID or during COVID.
So it's a brilliant solution.
It's a second opinion for critical conditions online. It's a purely telemedicine solution platform founded by a physician, again, a domain expert from Duke. And what we're offering is that you can actually select a specialty for any kind of disease. We're scrolling down the profile here. And our expert doc started in Duke by Dr. Kamran. And it's the HIPAA compliant, insured, all the T's and I's where everything was done. But we launched in Pakistan last year. Then we launched in India 1st of January. And while we were doing that, I was actually able to help facilitate Saudi investors to come and actually invest and make us the only health solution that is providing that solution in Saudi Arabia with the Riyadh-based headquarters. So when Ratna spoke about the Saudi journey, me being from Riyadh, I was able to just pull some strings and get some companies. So not just as health tech, we do have an ed tech and I guess a Web4 company that's in play right now. So all the things that Brother Akmal shared about knowing the domain, settling in a country, doing your homework is all correct. But understanding the problem, how it's going to play and how it's going to scale is what matters. Being in Saudi Arabia, knowing all their top diseases, I knew that $200,000 per patient was what they would spend for them to travel to America to get the specialty, and how the solution could play well in the Middle East. We were able to actually kind of expand it a lot over in the next month. We will be launching in Riyadh, but being in headquarters in Riyadh, we're able to launch with the Ministry of Health in Oman, Ministry of Health in Bahrain, and other regional governments. So thank you for being the support. And if anyone here would like to know how to expand Saudi Arabia, talk to me. I'm not an expert in this. I'm just an expert about the culture there. So So it helps. And then also the connections.
Let me add also, to emphasize what Sister Rashma mentioned here. Expert Doc made a presentation at the Entrepreneurship Club with our Sunday business pitches. And as a result of this presentation, the interaction started with our core team, and Sister Rashma was a mentor to them and went on their board of directors, connected them with the investor, and as a result, it made such a progress. And there are many examples of companies that come and present business pitches, and it built up into providing partnership, mentorship, and investment.
Thank you. So taking me back, so it's been a year and a half since we've gone through the twice a month pitches. And you have a spreadsheet. So we have about 41 startups, diversified in different specialties, hardware, software, health, animation, gaming. They've all gone to us, and we try our best to connect the right-minded people because you do need domain experts to help you grow. So, and then also the local community investors. And we're going, inshallah, we're going to start our pitches again. We are diving into AI as I speak, so we're going to have some AI-based solutions. But I would like to honor all three of these speakers. We have Dr. Hussain, Akmal Salim, and Mir Imran. And part of our entrepreneurship team is to also look into private, not so shared information about our speakers. Number one question I have for, I guess, the two of you first is, how has your childhood been when you were growing up? Were you always very scientific? Was there something different that your parents did that made you who you are? And, did you always aspire to study what you studied? Or just life happened and you pivoted your way? So
I just wanted to first say. So I just wanted to say, firstly, I'm not usually intimidated, but sitting next to these two people here is, I'm extremely intimidated. So I'm going to let the mic over to my left first.
And we are not a threat. We want to help.
No, I get that, but it's an honor to be sitting here with you both. I really appreciate that. But please.
About your childhood.
he's a child, so
So I was a destructive young boy. My mother was quite fed up with me. And she sat me down one day and said, "Why do you break everything? Other people use it." One time, I remember I climbed, put a stool on a stool and climbed up, got the clock with the, wind up clock, big clock. It fell down in pieces. And she sat me down and she said, "Why do you do this? Why do you do this?" So I said, "I want to know how it works." And another time I destroyed a radio because I thought there were little people inside. So she said, "How do we solve this?" So apparently I have no memory of it. I was 4 years old. I said, "Whenever you buy something, get an extra one for me, and I will break it. And you can't be angry with me." So she liked my response so much that she started doing that. And so I had license to kill. I felt like 007. So I think that was really, she took, and I tell everyone, if you have little kids, don't stop them. Let them be destructive. And maybe guide them. Don't. That kind of behavior is really how we learn. So I was so lucky. I had a mother who was so. Huh?
did you study science or?
Yeah. So, in India, I was a tinkerer. I had learned electronics while I was in 7th, 8th grade, and I used to build all kinds of things in my community. I was known as I could fix anything, so I would get all kinds of weird things. Can you fix it? And I would always say, yes, I can fix it, without even knowing what it was. And I would figure it out. Most of those things, in the 60s were pretty simple. But so when I came here and went to college, because I didn't have any theory background, so when I came here and started learning engineering, everything started falling in place. And I finished my undergraduate degree in EE in 2 years instead of 4. And that's because of all that childhood experience.
So, and going back to just following on with that, you have the scientific and biosciences experience for the past 40 years. So, would you recommend people to fall into both parts of STEM engineering as well as biology?
You know, if they have an interest, you know, we are all so different. My 5 kids, they all have different interests, and I have always told them, follow your heart. I will not tell you what to do. And my son, who got a computer science degree and a degree in music, and now he's running a biotech company. Can you figure that out? I couldn't have predicted that. My daughter went and got an electrical engineering undergraduate, worked for my biotech company, and decided to get an MBA at Harvard. And so they're all. My youngest daughter wants to be a novelist. And I said, how are you going to pay for how will you survive? He said, I don't have to worry about it. That's your problem.
She could be a billionaire and create Harry Potter.
Yeah.
That's what we aspire for. But thank you for that answer. I can continue asking Akmal. And
Yeah.
how has your educational journey been?
Yeah, I've always been curious, but entrepreneurial. I've always been hugely risk-taking, and I just didn't feel that I could quote unquote fail, even though I have failed so many times. But every time I would fail, it was only a learning, and it used to drive me. Also, situations just push me to do certain things. So my entrepreneurial journey was, for example, at university, I was in a dorm room with 5 non-Muslims who were partying every weekend, and I wasn't able to sleep. So what did I do? I put a sign on my door called Axis Kebabs. I went to the local stores. I bought really cheap microwavable kebabs, some salad and some drinks, and I overpriced them and sold them to the drunk people. And I did that every single, and that was when there was Facebook, and so I literally just, so they didn't have to leave, there was just loads of people in the apartment partying, and I was literally, my door was closed, I closed the door and it just had Axis Kebabs, £5 or whatever it was back then. And they used to knock on the door and they used to tell me, by the end, I used to have half the drunk people in my room helping me make the kebabs. And I would just look at the situation and I would take it from, but really my journey I have as I go back into was about purpose. When I found that when I have an inherent purpose to do something, and I can trace it back, my entrepreneurial journey, I can trace it back to the Pakistan earthquake. I was so devastated by what had happened. The first quote unquote company I ever launched was a charity, and through that charity, I learned how to do web designing, graphic designing, etc., etc., and that took me onto the path to actually launch the agency. And so, at the beginning point of anyone's entrepreneurial journey, I always just encourage people to just do what they want to, what they like, what's in their passion, what they enjoy. Because then the skills they learn from that are transferable into the business that might get them their first exit or whatever that might happen. And so I've just found that whatever I love, I like to invest into. I've invested into pizza companies because I love pizza. Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. But
Well, I can tell you something. In NEOM, we're actually looking at robotic pizza makers because we were approached for that.
yeah, someone actually contacted me around robotic pizza makers recently. But it's just the first part of your journey, I think, is just enjoy what you're doing, learn and hone those skills. and then you will naturally find a way. And that's why I feel like I'm at just the beginning of my journey. I don't feel, mashallah, I sit next to two people. So thank you.
Yeah, let me add to this here just from experience and observation. It's myself starting companies and then also investing and sitting on the board of companies that I label it the 3 Ps, for startup. You really have to have a passion for it. Don't start a company if you just want to make money. You start a company, don't start a company if you only want to make money. You have to have a passion for the company, the mission, the final objective of the company, the vision, and what the company impact is going to be. Without this, it's not going to work, because you're going to find a lot of problems and obstacles that you've never thought about. The second P is you have to have a lot of patience, because the first solution that you think very likely will not work. That you may have to pivot as you get a prototype and you give it to the customers. They give you some other ideas. You figure out how to make it better so that it has better traction. It can be scaled better in the marketplace. The third one is perseverance. Those are the 3 Ps that I always recommend entrepreneurs to follow.
Thank you. Wonderful answers. That jumps back to my next question. Back to Ron. I know you touched upon philanthropy, that you're engaged in philanthropy. How do you envision philanthropy in this day and age where we have fintech, we have software solutions, and we have a divided world where things are happening as we speak, and there's so much need for Muslims and entrepreneurs to actually give back to the community to sustain it.
Mhm.
What's your take on this, and what's your experience have been so far, being in Silicon Valley?
That's a great question. But before I answer that, I'll share a secret. One of my companies back 40 years ago, I created a bunch of jewelry. So it was a jewelry company. So don't ask me now why. But whenever I've gone to India, it breaks my heart when I see Muslim communities that are I don't know how they survive. There's no education, and so I decided I would focus on girls' education, because in my view, if you educate the girls, they'll educate their families, and it will change the whole descendants of that person. So I focus on that in Hyderabad and Lucknow. I've started doing that in Pakistan now, in Karachi, and I've done some isolated cases in the Middle East, helping people. No, I think I want to keep business separate, and the money I make, it allows me to do whatever I want. But the other thing that I would like to do, and I have done to some extent, is I've created this a program to teach children how to innovate, K through 12, and I tried to do that in Texas, and they at first they said, yeah, we'll let you do it, and I set up a lab, and I started training the teachers, and then there was an election, and the new superintendent came in and kicked me out. And I said, you don't have to spend a dime on it. And he said, no, we don't want it. So I have all this. So I don't know how I can pass that on to somebody.
And that's a real problem here in the public school system. We cannot gauge the STEM program.
Yeah. I mean, the process I came up with is now being taught at Stanford at the graduate level. It's called the Biodesign Program. It's the most popular program on campus. And we teach people how to innovate, not what to innovate. So we changed the wiring in their brain, the way of thinking completely. And it's an amazing, I mean, over 100 companies have come out in the last 20 years from that program.
I was just going to add to what Mr. Miriam mentioned, that when you read articles about how some very popular companies started, you find that there were very simple ideas. You know, like, for example, you know, Uber. I mean, I'm sure you heard this, that the founder was trying to get a cab in San Francisco, and it took him half an hour to get one. And he figured out, you know, why can't I get a cab with my iPhone? And luckily, iPhone was around, internet was around. Uber was the same thing. You know, a person was in San Francisco, you know, tried to find a room in a hotel, and there was several convention, and there were no rooms. And he said, there are so many apartments and that are vacant here, you know, why I can't find a room in San Francisco? Yeah, and that's what started Airbnb.
Identifying the problem.
Yes.
The solution becomes obvious.
Exactly. Yes. So there are many examples like this that you just have to look around. What are the most pressing problems around you that are, you know, that you encounter, that you would like to have a solution for? Figure out a solution for it, and you have to also realize: is it scalable? You know, does it have traction? You know, is it going to have a significant impact on the community and or the profession? You know, and is it also defendable? I mean, you can come up with a service or a product, but that many others can copy it immediately, and you know, you don't have a competitive advantage. You have to figure out a way to have a competitive advantage. You know, we usually call it a moat around the business, either in IP or in a business relationship, or, you know, the way you hook up different elements of the business. There's a unique, but you have to have a defendable business in order to make it scalable and you know, profitable over a period of time. Yes.
It's a community-based solution, alhamdulillah. Maybe you can share how it's been funded by the state or supported by the state, or helping those who are behind incarcerated at the detention centers to actually have some skills that they can actually come out and benefit from. Jazakallah khair for doing that. We would love to hear one of these days your project.
Let me just add a sentence about it here, just to put it in context. You know, I retired many years ago, and realized by talking to several people that, you know, our country here is probably the most advanced technologically. You know, look at all of the technology that get invented here in Silicon Valley, and we're one of the richest countries in the world. However, we have the worst prison system in the world. And, you know, measured by the incarceration rate per capita, measured by recidivism, which is, you know, the percentage of inmates that gets released and go back to prison again in 2 to 3 years. Compared to Western countries, you know, Germany, Norway, and so on, you know, our incarceration rate is 10 times larger per capita. Same thing as recidivism. And by talking to a lot of the, you know, responsible people in the prison system, realize that they don't apply advanced technology to educate inmates in prison. So we figured out a way, okay, how can we use cloud computing? How can we use all of the security guardrails? How to use artificial intelligence? How to put that together in a solution? And we worked with California Department of Correctional Rehabilitation and their top management in order to show how can inmates in a matter of 6 to 9 months take a course from Cisco or from Facebook or from Google or from Amazon and get a certificate in cloud computing and network administration and in social media marketing. And in 6 to 9 months, when they're released, they can get well-paying jobs. It raises their self-esteem, their critical thinking jump, and they become, a very active member of the community again, rather than a burden.
There's only one thing that I talk about that the government has to do is remove that label of felony.
Yes.
And that really is such a tragedy because they come out with that stamp on their forehead, and it's so
And not just that,
unfair.
because of digitization and web presence, that is actually a permanent print online that is hard to remove, specifically for employers because they can search you up and you get labeled. So that's another problem to solve
Yeah.
eventually. But we're running out of time. I do have one pressing question, but we'll give you the answer.
No.
But how important is branding? I know I just saw Ronnie Pericles and would ask the branding behind that, but you've been a branding guru, you've actually sold the company. And if you want to share how you took the Saudi, I know you mentioned about Azan clocks, you can share a little bit about that and then we'll wrap up.
Sure. I would just like to touch upon the philanthropy part though, just 1 minute, because for us as a community, what we've done, and in the UK and Europe, we've had generations of Muslims who have settled, and I just want to touch upon that first. The first generation in Europe, and I'm sure it's the same here, were a generation who came and they established masjids. That was to keep connected to the community. And now in Europe and here, there's masjids in every city. That was the mission that they had. The second generation came and educated their children because they had a connectivity to their roots, and then it was just about really pushing education into their children who could then grow wealth. And again, we are seeing that this has been a clear track record traction that's happening generation by generation, especially in the UK. The third generation, which is what I consider is my generation, we have to now take the step forward into a further stage. And for me, where that links to philanthropy, because the second generation established charities, zakat, orphans, mashallah, that's established. Billions of pounds, dollars a year go into this stuff. The third generation, which is my generation, I believe, we have to focus on sustainability, and that is waqf. It's all waqf. Because this masjid should never have to ask for $1 every time on a Friday to keep its lights on. And in the UK, we are still asking for £1 on a Friday to keep the masjid going. And that to me is a big problem. Because if we have institutions like this that have been around for 30, 40, 50 years, we should never be fundraising to keep the masjid alive. And so, but the point here is that waqf is the solution to this. We have people in the community who have wealth, mashallah, and we need to look at the next legacy generationally. And for me, absolutely, because billions of dollars and pounds go into charity. Even if we're getting an 8%, a 5%, a 6% return on that capital per annum, we can sustain masjids and centers. But we have to be long-term thinking. The instant gratification community that we live in feel like if we give a dollar or $10 or $100, we don't want to see that return in 10 years' time. We want to see that tomorrow. And that's a problem. And
I think it's a cultural thing. It's a cultural problem.
it is. And for us, this is our time, as in our generation. We have to fix this.
On an individual level, but for the community's good, the greater good, people just hold back.
Absolutely. And so we have to solve this problem. It's a massive problem that we have to solve together.
I'm so glad you brought this up because a couple of months ago, we actually hosted Halal Money Show right here. And I actually had to pitch about a concept that came up with the Muslim bank owned by Muslims that is addressing the distribution problem and sustainability problem. So inshallah, we'll talk to you. I know you had a banking journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the branding.
Yeah, sure.
The question I wanted to answer.
Sure.
And also, Peter brought
Sure.
about branding.
Sure.
How important it is.
For me, brand is a passion. I from a passion perspective, the key thing about brand is communication and penetration. We have the easiest way for me to split this is
identity versus brand. Anyone can make a logo. And a lot of people today, when they're building their companies, what they do is they make a logo that looks nice for them. They make a brand that they feel comfortable with. They don't look at, just like the problem that Doctor's been talking about, your brand has to address a communication link with your customer, always. Even if you do not like the way it looks or feels or uses the right colors. And if you don't have that brand or that identity that links to your customer, then you can't have a sustainable brand. Then the next process of this is to build a brand and not just keep it as an identity. And that's done on a psychological level. And I mean, over 10 years, I built my own theory of building sustainable brands, but there's just psychological elements to each thing. From sound, I actually design my brands now first from sound, not anything else. Because we are in an age of infinite communication and information. So how can I stand out with my brand with anybody? Usually sound is within a few seconds I can capture you. Information and seeing something is not there anymore. So the psychological elements of branding continuously change depending on how much complex information you absorb. We're scrolling through feeds all day long, hours. How can a brand stand out? So these are the types of things that we look at. And I think it's more and more important just for people to appreciate the nuances of branding, because again, as a community, we're not fantastic at communicating. And if we look at the psychological and the investment that the big companies put into branding and communication, it's incredible. And we don't, as a community, do this long enough.
Let me just add one quick thing here that relates to what was said so far. As an entrepreneur, you have to think about building a team. You cannot do it alone. And you have to have a team that is with complementary skills and experience to get along well. Anybody who invested, will always tell you, there are 3 rules for investment. Similar to the 3 rules of real estate investment: location, location, location. In startup, it is the team, the team, the team. The team, a good team, excellent team, could take an average idea and make it successful and pivot and make it great. A mediocre team can take a great idea and ruin it. So you have to think of a team that has complementary skills. Somebody who is excellent in branding and marketing. Somebody who is technologically savvy in software development or in hardware development, in figuring out sales channels. All of those things are key elements of building a successful business. So don't think that you have to do everything alone or you have to know everything alone. You cannot.
Huh? Well, I don't know how to build brands. I know how to name companies. You saw my company's names. My Rani Therapeutic, Rani was my mother's nickname. And so after she died, I started that company and named it after her. It's such an honor to meet all of you and you all. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you. Thank you. Next time, the technology will be much better. Inshallah.